Hi everyone, it's Emma, and the purpose of this video is to introduce you to a collection of resources, articles, commentary, videos, a whole narrative that really surrounds one particular theme. And this theme is digital literacy and society. And we're taking a particular set of circumstances, a set of circumstances to which we can all relate to a greater or lesser extent. And this is the Covid-19 health pandemic, the health crisis, which we are all experiencing in some way or another. The point of this collection is not to be comprehensive or exhaustive, but really provide a snapshot, a starting point for exploring and discovering and thinking about how this current health crisis is bringing to the fore, is adding fuel to the fire of some burning debates which have already been underway and really gaining speed up until this point. And there's no better place to start than perhaps education. We are in a period of crisis, in exceptional circumstances, which requires exceptional actions and which has exceptional consequences. As UNESCO outlined at the end of March, talking about the impact on education, at that point, there were 1.37 billion students out of school and 138 countries affected by school closures. This is a huge, huge number, and it has meant that those who have been able to continue with education, those who've been able to go online, it has meant that these people have had to upskill, have had to understand what it means to teach and learn effectively, appropriately, efficiently, and above all, safely. It's brought to the fore the fact that many teachers just did not feel prepared. Not now, not in the future, but certainly not in the circumstances which requires what has been called emergency remote teaching. The pressure that teachers have been under has been expressed in many different ways. We have this video which went viral, this video of a teacher giving a rendition of a popular song. Now, of course, what lies behind this is the fact that teachers are feeling that they should have had better continuing professional development, that their workload has been absolutely huge since the crisis broke out. There's also been the fact that we've had to think about what education will look like once this crisis is over. And of course, this is a layer of challenge to the education system that we didn't really need. The fourth Sustainable Development Goal, as set out by UNESCO, was to deliver quality education for all. There was the goal that by 2030 there'd be universal access to primary and secondary education. Are we going to reach that? We don't know, especially now we're facing such unprecedented challenges. With more people going online, there is the question of our digital infrastructure. Is it good enough? Is it fit for purpose? As of today, and I'm speaking of the 3rd of April, in the UK there has been the debate over how taxes are spent. Where should the government be putting its weight? Where should it be putting its support? What should it be spending the money on? Up until this point, there has been the debate around whether to develop roads and railways and other forms of transport. But now the question is, should we be really investing in better digital infrastructure? At the moment, for those of us who are lucky enough to enjoy a stable and reasonable internet connection, it has been highlighted that it's okay. It's okay for the minute. Even this debate over Netflix and entertainment and whether the streaming quality should be reduced. Actually, what has happened through studies of looking at the delivery of data, looking at bandwidth across the world, is that actually the internet is coping. It is coping for a lot of us, it's coping for now. Another key area here has been the debate on social media and the positive and negative impact it can have in our lives. It has brought to the fore this question of end-to-end encryption with WhatsApp. Is that safe? Should more be done to manage the exchange of information, whether it's bad or good, between friends and family? not just as in this article that I've linked here, which focuses on India, but around the world. From this worrying circumstance to a positive circumstance, we have outlets, platforms such as Reddit, which was one of the early comers to the social media space, which has really looked to be a forerunner, to be the exemplar in terms of sharing authoritative, reasoned, moderated information. And this has really been a response to those media outlets that are looking to sensationalize news headlines, to draw in the clicks, to get people to read and stay on pages. So a very positive outcome. And it is really here being highlighted how much digital literacy is important, not just in times of crisis, but at any time. With the outbreak of the crisis, what we have sadly seen is the rise of bad actors. There have been a rising number of scams on doorsteps, but also online. And again, we need to have those digitally literate eyes really sharpened. To take an example from the UK, we recently had a scam following the announcement of the government that they would support businesses and the self-employed, and a scam purporting to be a government page and taking people's details. Wherever we click, whenever we go online, we need to be so careful that we're reading and engaging with what we think we are or what we wanted to engage with. And this has just been another example in this crisis. Of course, there have also been broader unfortunate acts. We have examples of profiteering, of price hikes. We have bogus, false products being sold online. So when we're reading through information, when we're looking to buy goods or exchange goods, we need to also really be on our toes. But to flip-flop back to some of the positive outcomes, with our personal and professional lives impacted like never before, what we've seen is a lot of people coming together in all sorts of communities, sharing expertise and knowledge for the better of others, to help others. And again, to take this example in the UK, there's been a real sharing of resources, tools and ideas to help people to work from home, to maintain their well-being and remain connected with all of those around them. But with the greater involvement of tech, of course, what have we had but the rise of this debate again, that we should maybe be worried that tech companies have all this data on us. The questions of privacy and security. Should this information be handed over to governments? Do we want greater agency in this? And as I speak on the 3rd of April, what has happened today is Google's handed over location data. It has been anonymized, but to really help governments understand the impact of their measures. Is it okay in this instance that information about us, data about us is shared because it is for the betterment of society? It's a big question, and it's one that we're increasingly looking at, not just in this crisis, but beyond as well. In the UK, there have been concerns over surveillance capitalism, this idea that with the emergency powers that have been granted to governments, do we want them looking over our shoulders, knowing whom we're seeing, knowing whom we're engaging with, knowing what we're reading, for example? Another big question in this debate on privacy in society and the balance between that. Here we've had the involvement of telecom companies, but of course we've got tech companies, and increasingly as we play out much more of our personal and professional lives online, we're going to have to return to some of these big questions. Now, up until this point, I've been talking very much about those challenges, those digital literacy challenges that we face, those of us who have easy access online. But of course, it's not to forget that much access, much information is controlled in many parts of the world. And one geography that has again come onto the radar is Turkmenistan, an authoritarian regime where we have seen the management of information and the desire to manage the view of how the country is coping with the crisis result in quite extraordinary measures. And here we've got the banning of the word coronavirus in all reporting. And as of today, the 3rd of April, Iraq has announced that Reuters journalists will not be allowed to report about the COVID-19 outbreak in Iraq. So some extraordinary set of circumstances, some very complex issues that are really being brought to the fore. But as I've already insinuated and pointed to, there is a brighter side. What has the online world allowed us to do? It's allowed us to remain connected to those whom we love, people close to us, our colleagues, our family, and our friends. There have been some really creative outputs in response to the virus. We have this one, the handshake alternatives. We have this one, and repeat, where different words are color-coded. But of course, behind these creative outputs, there is quite a serious underlying message. Our lives are going to change like never before. And in this new environment and this new norm that we're all having to live, digital literacy is becoming all the more and more important. But to end on a brighter and perhaps more uplifting note, the online world has allowed us to share each other's talents, to take time away from the news updates and the other areas that are competing for our attention, and to enjoy the arts like perhaps never before. And this example, which I'd like to finish on, is a New York orchestra coming together from 71 different places to bring the joy of classical music to anyone, anywhere in the world.